Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Mo, aka Swedish Whiskey Girl, and today we are here with a Swedish whiskey. This is the new Stjärnrök from Mackmyra. So it's a Swedish single malt whiskey. It is bottled at 46.1% ABV, and this is part of their kind of seasonal range. So this, I believe, would be the winter one. And it consists of whiskey that has been matured in a combination of ex-bourbon, virgin American oak, Oloroso casks, and then also Swedish oak that has been seasoned with cloudberry wine. So it's a bit of a mix of everything and quite a Swedish whiskey. And I'm always curious to see what Mackmyra is going to do, so I'm looking forward to trying this. I have actually tried it once before because I did a little tasting for them because I was judging one of their small privately owned casks. They had a little competition for it, so I'm gonna have a little taste of it again because I've been a bit unwell, unfortunately. I lost my voice, and then it's really difficult to review whiskies when you can't smell anything because you're just so blocked up. But now we're back, which is great. It retails around £62 and I think it was released last week. So let's start by having a look on the nose. The first thing it makes me think of is quite a sweet smoke, but also, so in Sweden when you go skiing around Easter time, it has this lovely weather where it's quite dry and it's cold enough for the snow to stay on the ground, especially up on the hills, on the slopes, but it's just warm enough to sit outside in a t-shirt. And it kind of reminds me of this kind of ski holiday in Sweden around Easter time where the wood's quite dry and yeah, the ground's dry, but it's just a nice time. It's that kind of woodiness as well. If you make up a fire, because my dad's a survival instructor in the army, so we always got to do that ourselves on like excursions or if we were out in the woods. So yeah, that kind of wood that you find that time of year. But it also has something desserty about it. But like smoky dessert. Like a smoky creme brulee almost. And then a little bit of Christmas spices, but quite mildly, and it's behind something else. It's almost like if you had stewed plums and you put Christmas spices in there, that's the kind of fruitiness that comes through. And there's also some sort of, like almost like a blueberry tone. Yeah, like a berry note in the middle of everything. They had that kind of stewed plums with the Christmas spices. I think you do get a little bit of that sherry note on the nose. Not overwhelmingly though, it's just, I feel like if you gave this to me blind and told me to guess casks, it would be quite tricky because there's a lot of different things that going on that wouldn't necessarily point you to the direction of one cask. But when I know that there's Oloroso involved, I can look for it and I can find it, but I wouldn't say, if you handed this to me, I wouldn't say, oh, this must be Oloroso, because it's not that clear of a single cask influence, which I quite like about Mackmyra. I think it's interesting when you have loads of different aspects of casks coming together and making something that is quite different to other things. The smoke also has a foresty note, almost like, I don't know why it makes me think of juniper bushes. It probably just makes me think of the forest up where my gran lives because she has juniper bushes on her garden, but I don't know if juniper bushes actually have a specific scent themselves. Maybe it's a little bit of juniper actually. But let's have a little taste. Skål! Definitely get smoke the first thing you do on the palate, and I think I forgot to say at the start of it that this is made with their smoky recipe. So Mackmyra has two different recipes, the elegant, which is the unpeated, and then the smoky one, which is smoky. And I think for most, is it for all of their peated malt that they use juniper twigs as well as peat when they smoke the barley. It could just be partial malt, partial, like some of their malt that they do it to, but I know they do it to some, but I'm not sure if they do it to all of their malt. I would probably say you get more of that kind of sherry character on the nose rather on the palate. The palate is a little bit more virgin oak ex-bourbon for me, which makes it quite interesting because it lets the smoke come out, but the smoke actually isn't overpowering. It definitely has a woodiness on the palate as well, quite a dry, not as in like a dry wood character, not as it doesn't make my mouth feel dry. It's quite mouth-watering actually. It's quite juicy. And the finish is there. And I don't know what it is about Mackmyra. It might just be that I know what it is, but it almost always makes me think of Swedish forests. The thing I think it might be is that it reminds me more of a dry climate forest, that kind of smokiness, because that's what I recognise the most. And then the reason I really like it so much is that it brings out a big kind of nostalgia for me, because obviously I grew up in Sweden, but it's compared to in the UK, for example, it's quite a humid climate. It changes a bit the way the forest smells. Sits nicely at this ABV as well. Could add a few drops of water because it's maybe a little bit spicy. But yeah, it almost tastes like a juniper note to it as well. I don't think you have as much of the kind of plum notes, even though it is quite juicy and has a character that is the mixture between sweet and smoky and like an ex-bourbon American oak influence. A little bit like a smoky dessert. But I think definitely this is probably one of my favourite smoky expressions from Mackmyra. It's quite difficult because I find when I review whiskies, I gravitate towards unpeated because it can be quite difficult with peat because it almost overpowers the character. But this, I don't think it does. It has a nice balance of things. I think this would be a great whiskey to bring on your skiing holiday if you're looking for something like that, or just if you're, I was going to say go into your hunting cottage, just because we have one in Sweden, and I think that would be a great thing when you gather with friends in the evening and you light a bonfire. You all have a dram, maybe watch the stars, because I didn't say at the start, but Stjärnrök, which is the name of this whiskey, means star smoke. So where we have our little cottage in the woods, you could walk up on this, it is, I don't want to say a mountain, but it's like a big hill, and you can stand and just watch the views, and because it's so far from any cities, you just see all the stars. I can imagine this being brilliant in that kind of situation. There was a bit of pear fruitiness coming through on the nose as well, which is definitely something you'd find in their release Bruks whiskey, which is one of the fruitiest whiskies I've ever tried, which is I love. But yeah, it's the kind of mixture of being a little bit sweet and juicy, but also having quite a robust smoke. So if you do like smoke and you want to try something that isn't, say, Islay whiskies, this could be a really good one because it still has quite a robust smoke, but it's a completely different character to what you would find in Scotland. But I think you also have to like a little bit of a sweeter touch of smoke to thoroughly enjoy this. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you tried any smoky Swedish whiskies? Have you tried any smoky Mackmyras? Or have you managed to get a hold of Stjärnrök already? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please put them in the comments here below. And of course, if you had liked this video, I'd be thrilled if you would consider leaving a thumbs up and maybe subscribe if you haven't already. And if you do want to support this channel further, I've also put my affiliate links to Master Malt, the Whisky Exchange and the Scotch Malt Whisky Society in the little section here below. And before we go, I want to say a massive thank you to our wonderful supporters on Patreon. I'm so grateful that I have your support on my whisky journey. But I'll see you all in the next video. Sláinte Skål!